Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worshipful, the Mayor of Gravesham.
The microphone on. Must be that time of year. Good evening, everyone. The Mayor's chaplain, Reverend Jim Fletcher, is unable to be with us this evening. So what he's done is he has sent his reflection and prayer for me to read out to you, if you will indulge me. Dear all, apologies I am unable to be with you this evening. I am leading a carol service at church. Speaking of which, one of my favourite carols is O Little Town of Bethlehem, with those beautiful words, the hopes and fears of all the years are meeting thee tonight. When we reach Christmas Day, we will be met by a vulnerable child who reaches out to us in light and love, fulfilling all our hopes and quietening our fears. What are your hopes and fears for this Christmas and as we enter a new year? What are your hopes and fears for this evening's meeting? We gather this evening knowing that we are near a time of great rejoicing. However, we do remember those who will find Christmas difficult, and we gather this evening in the knowledge of the dreadful shootings in Australia and America. So remember them now. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we offer to you this evening's meeting, knowing that the joy of Christmas is near. Bless us in our discussions and any decision-making this evening. And we gather knowing there is great pain in the world at present. We pray for peace where there is conflict. And we especially pray for all those who were caught up in the awful shootings in Australia and America. Bless those who mourn and heal those who are injured. May the light and hope of the newborn Christ reach out to them. Amen. On behalf of all at St. George's, when we get there, a very happy and holy Christmas to you all. Hope to see many of you over the festive period. God bless, Jim. Well, thank you, Jim, and I'm sure everyone in this chamber wishes the Mayor's chaplain and everyone at St. George's Church a very happy Christmas. But on that note, maybe just take a moment as we're all standing here, not to do a silence, but just to remember in our thoughts Councillor Leslie Hills, who very sadly had his wife die, and today was the funeral, hence he's not here this evening. So if we could just hold him in our thoughts and his family, that would be good. So please be seated, everyone. Right, I think I need to start, don't I, with the live streaming announcement. Good evening, everyone, again, and welcome to this meeting of Gravesham Borough Council's Full Council. I intend to go through some housekeeping matters. I always think that sounds as though I'm about to do the washing. Sorry. This meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube within 2 working days, and where it can be accessed by everyone. Members, please use the microphone in front of you when talking and ensure you turn your microphone off once you have finished speaking. Another member or officer will not be able to speak if your microphone is still on. Please note that the Council's recording equipment will focus on the public gallery area. Therefore, those in attendance at this meeting will be filmed or recorded. Attendance at this meeting signifies your agreement to this. On hearing the fire alarm, we ask all attendees to immediately evacuate the building. Please evacuate via the nearest fire exits and make your way to the community square outside of the reception doors. So moving on to apologies for absence, Chief Exec, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies have been received from councillors Emma Elliott, councillors Denning, Hills, Metcalfe and Stiver.
Thank you.
Councillor Mead.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Madam Mayor, and Councillor Baines sends her apologies.
Thank you. That's noted. Thank you. Anyone else I've missed? Sorry. Okay. So to sign the minutes of the previous meetings, which are the 14th of October and the 18th of November 2025. Is that agreed? Excellent. So we'll move on to declare any interest members may have in the items contained on this agenda. When declaring an interest, a member must state what their interest is. And I'll just hand to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As members will be very familiar with by now, we will automatically take into account any declarations of interest already made on the relevant DPI form, so it'll just be new declarations this evening.
Item 5, to answer any questions received from members of the public of which notice has been given under Council Procedure Rule 13. Chief Exec.
Madam Mayor, no questions have been received.
Thank you. So we move to item 6, which are the minutes. So as is the usual way, I will bring them together. So we have 6A and D, minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on Wednesday the 22nd of October and Wednesday the 12th of November 2025.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Thank you, Councillor Narendra Sandy. Gosh, all quick off the mark. Wow, speed up, Jenny. 6B and 6F, minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on Monday the 3rd of November and Tuesday the 18th of November 2025.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
And pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. 6C, minutes of the meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee held on Wednesday the 5th of November 2025.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Larkins.
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ectoveen Tandy. 6E, minutes of the meeting of the Overview Scrutiny Committee held on Thursday the 13th of November 2025.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And I think I've covered all the minutes, I hope. And so we move on to item 7, which are the reserved minutes. So to receive and adopt the proceedings, reports and recommendations of the committees contained in the list of items reserved under Council Procedure Rule 5.26, to ratify the orders made by them. Now, the first one I have is for the Cabinet from Monday the 3rd of November 2025. It was agenda page 20. Minute 51, counter fraud and corruption strategy. And I think the member to speak is Councillor Lenny Rose, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We thought it was worth reserving this particular item. And as it's the end of the year and approaching the festive season and Christmas, I thought it'd be very nice to thank the officers for all their hard work throughout the year. Particularly our corporate services team, but all officers across the council that work with us in the administration and councillors everywhere for the work that they're doing. And this counter fraud strategy, as it says, is a review of our ongoing work to prevent fraud on the council. It's an example of the extremely important business as usual that the council just takes in its stride and our officers take in its stride. Now, the reason why it's important to thank all officers for this work is because it actually impacts all officers and everyone in the council. And it was great that at the Cabinet meeting, members were able to draw out exactly the sort of training that officers receive, and it was confirmed that officers and members of the council would understand the importance of protecting the public purse by undertaking training and both online and in person, and agreeing that they've understood and read the counter fraud and anti-corruption strategy. And as part of that training, it's also included for new officers, which it was great to understand because it's such an important part of what the council does. There are people out there who would sadly seek to defraud us and the taxpayers of the borough, and we need to make sure that we have a robust defence against that, and it's right and proper that we have a strategy in place like this one. So I'd like to thank officers for their work on this, and I thought it was very important to highlight to all councillors and anyone watching the steps that are taken to protect the funds of the council day in, day out. And thank you very much, officers, for all your hard work during the course of this year. Thank you, Madam.
Does anybody else want to speak, please? Thank you, Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's just to echo the remarks that Councillor Rolls has just made, and to draw members' attention to the fact that we did call this into the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where we did have a very robust line of questioning, and indeed agree with what Councillor Rolls has just said, that the team here with limited resource do an incredible amount of work on behalf of the local taxpayer. One recommendation that we asked to feedback informally from that meeting was that if there's any member training course that should be made mandatory, it's the understanding around counter fraud. And I'd just like to put that on the record as Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, John, sorry, yes, leader.
I support what's being said in the issue of the work done by officers, the report itself, and the effort that they'll put in behind the scenes to ensure that we don't have any problems of corruption or counter fraud in the authority. A lot of work is put in. Officers spend a lot of time on this. They do fully understand the rules, and they're very good at making sure that we all follow the rules, because the rules apply to all of us. I think the only thing that this particular report coming through here is probably unusual, is that it did go to scrutiny, but it also went to F&A. And normally the process of when it's examined in F&A amongst all members, there's no need normally for it to come through scrutiny, because members have all the opportunity to go to F&A. So officers spent obviously 3 good meetings examining this whole issue, and I think throughout that they've obviously then demonstrated a very good understanding of the strategy. It's been implemented. I think the only one thing that I had a little bit of concern about coming out of scrutiny was, well, 2 things. One was the issue around the potential conflict being drawn out of officers working for 2 authorities that may be subject to LGR. I don't see there being a problem there. We've got excellent officers. There are Chinese walls in place, and we've been dealing with that for a number of years already. So there's not an issue there. On the issue of making training compulsory, I think there are probably 2 or 3 areas of training in the council I'd love to make compulsory. Unfortunately, we can't. There's no ability to compel members to go for training. I only wish we could, because we put on a lot of training procedures in the authority for all members to attend. And unfortunately, there's a real clear transparency of lack of members going to training. It's made publicly available. It goes to scrutiny every year. And if you look at that in the way of training, you'll see how few members actually get the training when it's put on for them. So the thought of trying to make it compulsory is not there legally. It's up to the group leaders to encourage all members to attend training. And I'll take this opportunity on the back of this item being pulled in to ask all members to really consider the training needs going forward. If there's training you don't feel you're getting, you want, ask for it. When training's being put on for you, please do go for it, attend it. And particularly with LGR, if we do end up following through that path and combining authorities, there's going to be a lot of need for members to understand how local government works and the rules and the law. So that if you are members on that authority that comes into place, it'll be a different authority. And if we've got a body of people here who understand how it works, that'd be healthy for that authority. But that will come from training. So please do attend. Sadly, it can't be made compulsory. I wish you could. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So we move on to the next item, and it's the Cabinet, Monday the 3rd of November 2025 again. And this is agenda page 23, and it's minute 54. And it's the Gravesend Town Centre Improvements Programme. Councillor Deborah Croxton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Since taking over the Community and Leisure portfolio, I'm delighted with the progress this council has continued to achieve. And I would like to thank the hard work and endeavours of the officers who have shown such commitment driving forward these significant achievements. Some of these initiatives include the Gravesend Town Centre Improvements Programme. The aim of this initiative is to make the town centre a greener, safer and much healthier place for both residents and visitors. £3 million of the LUF the council was awarded, plus a contribution of £490,000 from the Lower Thames Crossing, has been allocated to this programme. Gravesend is an historic and architecturally stunning riverside town. A number of small businesses have trade here, plus the high-speed rail link allows for connectivity to and from the borough. As with other town centres, Gravesend faces challenges with a national decline in retail demand. Therefore, diversification of uses is key to its development. We feel working together needs to be at the heart of everything we do by putting in place clear structures for engagement with businesses, residents and community groups across the town centre. Therefore, workshops were held with key stakeholders to gain their input on what they would like to see as part of the planned improvement in the town centre. This programme is aligned with the Council's corporate plan of 2023 to 2027. The outputs and outcomes associated with the project have been agreed with NHCLG and will be subject to quarterly monitoring checks through the funding period and beyond up to 2030. The combined outputs and outcomes have been agreed with NHCLG and the Lower Thames Crossing and will require monitoring via the LUF compliance process. This includes the creation of 374 jobs, over 6,500 square metres of improved retail space, nearly 3,000 square metres of improved green and blue space, and over 3,000 square metres of improved public realm. From the feasibility study across the town centre, the projects being taken forward for the public realm improvements were those that were considered viable and or impactful given the available funding and discussion with town centre stakeholders through a series of workshops. From re-landscape parks and open spaces to refreshed streets and new places for communities to meet, I truly believe that this investment will provide for a more vibrant and attractive town for our residents, businesses and visitors. So thank you again to the officers and everybody involved in their hard work in making this happen. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Deborah Croxton. And I have one speaker, Councillor Lynn Milner.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Mayor. As one of the town ward councillors, and on behalf of obviously yourself, Madam Mayor, and Gadget Bunga, I stand to say tonight how this is cheerful news, good news, and looking at King Street, which hasn't had the buses come through now for a little while, although some of the street furniture has been moved, but a lot of the pavements and the curbs are still quite high. So that would be lovely to have those at the same height as New Road. So we get that through look from King Street to the end of New Road, and even taken into the heritage quarter of our borough. And I think it's going to look absolutely brilliant, and it needs doing up terribly. And if I can say, yes, we have got high-speed train. And also, we mustn't forget that we have got some development coming on, got the charter coming on, and we want our town to look clean, tidy, vibrant. I was up the town today doing my shopping, and there was lots and lots of people there. So that we are a vibrant town to come and do shopping. And so this is why I thought I'd stand up and just say that it's needed. The money will be spent wisely, and thank you all the officers for going out and finding everything. And I have seen some yellow marking out in New Road, so long may that continue. And when it's all done, it really will look lovely to come into our town. And there's more shops opening in King Street as we speak, and I think it will only leave. When I walked through here tonight, there was working on the last shop there, and it would only be where the Majestic Cinema was that needs the input there. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Milner. I think we have Councillor Lenny Rolls, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everyone in the chamber tonight can agree it's great to see the town bustling, as Councillor Milner's identified today. I wanted to set out, actually, it's great to get this money into Gravesham, but I think should pay particular tribute to the local MP, because actually, if you look at other towns and cities across the country that were originally told they were going to get funding under this bid, it didn't come through. And I think so much of the work that goes on behind the scenes from the administration, the leader of the council, cabinet members and the MP, lobbying government on behalf of residents in Gravesham to make sure we get as much money as possible is something to be applauded. We're seeing great improvements in the town centre that's coming through. And a lot of that's taking place from conversations that are going on in Westminster that we don't even get to hear about. It's bringing money to Gravesham, like the £1.5 million in funding that's been discussed previously, so that we can spend on projects for our community and deliver for them, which we're doing as a local authority. I think if you just look at some of the projects that are outlined on the list and that Councillor Croxton so eloquently put, in terms of the kind of investment that's taking place in the town that we can all feel and see. For a long while now, we've been looking at St Andrew's Gardens and asking for it to be upgraded and dealt with and done so that it's a nice place for people to go and look. I was in a fortunate position earlier this week with our officer Tom, who's done a fantastic job together with other officers leading on the charter, to be visiting the charter and looking out of the windows there down on St Andrew's Gardens, seeing a couple running through it together hand in hand, which was very nice at this time of year, but also seeing people enjoy the gardens even in the winter. I think as we move to the summer months, we'll be able to see more and more usage of such a wonderful space like St Andrew's Gardens that was funded partly by this fund to the tune of, upgrades close to £1 million. Play parks, there's lots going on to be proud of in Gravesham. And I think, this report that's been reserved this evening really does highlight it very well. So I'm really pleased to be able to discuss this evening. But back to my point at the top, I don't think we'd have this money or would have secured it in the way that other local authorities have lost it if it wasn't for some of the work behind the scenes of the local MP and the leader visiting the House of Commons to make sure that we got this money. So I think it's something to be celebrated, particularly at this time of year, bringing some good cheer to the people of Gravesham. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Councillor Jordan for me.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, I agree. I really do welcome the investment in our town centre. It's a long time overdue, and it's really good to see that at last we're breathing life into some of these areas. We called this item again into the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I'd like to thank Councillor Croxton for the very positive way in which we dealt with some of the genuine concerns that were raised by members that evening, and I trust that some of those concerns will be taken away in good faith. One of those concerns was over pedestrianisation and proposed pedestrianisation, and particularly the gate-to-gate scheme, because I think the gate-to-gate scheme, we need to be incredibly careful that does not come at the expense of other areas on the outskirts of our town centre, and the borough does need to commit itself to not only focusing on the immediate town centre. When it comes to pedestrianisation, I'd just like to put on the record as well my thanks to Kent Police, who over the past week, I think, have done a sterling job in cracking down on the e-scooters and e-bike dramas that we have going on in our town centre. And it's really good, again, to see some proactive action going on in that field. I do have to say, Madam Mayor, that with all these town centre improvements that are being proposed, there is one white elephant in the room, and that's the fact that this borough council has removed substantial car parking spaces, which I do believe is decreasing footfall and the ability for footfall to occur within our town centre. And I think we need to be mindful of that as we move forward. I'm also very disappointed, Madam Mayor, that here we are approaching the Christmas period and we don't have a functioning borough market and there is no borough Christmas tree. But I'll leave that there.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Do I have anybody else who wishes to speak? Shall I hand to the leader then, please?
Sorry, I was writing a few notes there, Madam Mayor.
Sorry.
One note I was writing down, I needed clarification on. When I heard Councillor Lenny Roll was saying there was a couple dancing through St Andrews hand in hand, you mentioned being with Tom. Was it the two of you dancing through St Andrews in celebration of what we're doing? And it did make me wonder. So perhaps we can sort that one out after the meeting. But coming back to the issue of the report itself, I think it does highlight a lot of good work that's going to be done in the borough. We are getting significant additional funding from government, money we've never had before. And so we haven't spent it wisely. It sounds like a lot of money, £3 million on the town centre, but it's not when you're trying to spread it as far as we're trying to spread it. We are getting another £1.5 million from government just not that long ago announced. But that funding will be for outside of the town centre immediately. And we're looking to spread the benefit of some of that elsewhere into the authority area. So it will go to other parts of the urban area and will also go to parts of the rural area to find ways we can enhance the lives of our residents. And I think that's what we're all in truth here for. The town centre is a living thing. It has had its bad times. We have had periods of time when we lost big traders and it's killed our town centre. It was killed, I've got to say, if you're going to bring up car parking, I'll go back further than that. The start of the rot started when the Conservative group, when in control of its council, supported the building of Sainsbury's and the other out-of-town shopping facilities. That killed our town centre, as they left our town centre where people were shopping here. And that, with the national failure of the big brands, we've had to reinvent ourselves. And I think walking through the town now, and when I was parking up at Parrot Street earlier, it was really good to see a number of new businesses that sprung up. Businesses are selling all sorts of products from different nations and different nationalities in food and style of eating and restaurants. That will bring back the life to our town centre. It will bring people back in. And interestingly, on this issue of car parking, we are looking at obviously what we can do about bringing more life, more energy into our town. And there are reports available, which we'll be sort of looking at and we're trying to develop into a moment, that demonstrate actually a lot of people in our town centre don't drive. And I think we forget sometimes our town centre is literally 5 minutes away from heavily built up residential areas. You walk outside this building, you walk over the road, you're into residential areas. There are people who live in our town centre, and we've got to make this a vibrant place for everyone, not just people that may pop in from, it'd be wise to pop in here from Medway. Good place to come. It's certainly better than some parts of Medway. So this is a great place here in Gravesham. So I can understand why people want to come here. That being said, a lot of people don't need to drive. We don't need the car parking. We've got to change our attitude of how we move around as well. And I think what we need to do is build an environment here where we can actually have people shopping, getting their commodities they need, but also encourage restaurants. If you bring restaurants in and you bring trade in like that, then you actually bring families in. And if you bring families into the environment, the atmosphere changes as well. And the important thing is to make our town centre a homely place where everybody wants to come to. People want to come to and will come to. And that's what we're trying to build here. So there's little bits on other little bits we've built up over time. And we're going to try and make something really nice here. And I hope all of us will be on that journey to see it happen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Now we move to item 8, the climate change annual report, and I turn to Chief Executive, please. Ooh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just whilst I have the microphone and before I do a short introduction on this report, I've received notification that Councillor Rana also offered his apologies for this evening's meeting. So perhaps you bless him, we can add his apologies to the record. Thank you. The climate change annual report as set out on page 55, agenda item 8 for councillors. I'll keep this introduction very brief. I'm sure councillors have read it and will be familiar. This is the 5th such annual report that has been presented to council for adoption since the climate change motion was agreed back in 2019. And as the covering report sets out, the annual report covers areas such as our carbon reduction actions during 2025, the baselines that we are using, future carbon pressures that we are experiencing, and key deliverables in 2026. Subject to full council adoption of this annual report this evening, Madam Mayor, we will look to be placing this annual report on the website as we have done with the others. And with that said, I'd like to hand over to the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for the benefit to get this rolling, on page 55, the recommendation for 2 there, which I propose as a motion to be adopted by this council. So,
Please to second, Madam Mayor, and reserve my right.
just on this, I think climate change report is an update of what we did last year. It's a developing programme of work. From previous years, you know, we did a lot of work to change our freighters, look at our buildings. We've had a tremendous amount of money in from government. We've worked closely with Kent County Council on some of the improvements. And as it happens, I was walking through our town centre earlier, admiring how the electric buses were getting recharged in the Garrick Street directory. It just reminded me in my moment of thinking of some sort of foreign type of, I mean intergalactic charging point, because these pods came out the top of the buses and connected to the top of the charging point, high level, and they look really interesting. And I still actually watched that for a while, which makes it sound sad. But it struck home to me how important electric charging was. And these were buses paid for in part and supported by Kent County Council as part of the climate change initiative. And I think this is something that we should bear in mind, that it's not just us, but there are other agencies that are supporting this initiative. What we're now moving into is the next phase of reaching out into our communities, spreading the word out there, advising them how they can be part of that journey to improve our environment, but also look at climate change, look at reduction of carbon use and how they can themselves benefit. So I think it's a good report. It sets out the progress so far and also the journey we're going to start onto. So hopefully you'll all join us on that and support the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Do I have any other speakers, please? Councillor Mead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And regrettably, I find myself having to make the same points that I make around this time every single year, because it was back in 2019 when this authority took, as I said then, the unwise decision to declare a climate emergency and said that we in this borough would be carbon neutral by 2030. Now, the Conservative group opposed this, not just because we don't care for the environment, but because we wanted and we expected as councillors that we would be given a fully costed plan on how the actions proposed would deliver value for money and improve service delivery at this authority. And indeed, in this report that we have before us tonight, there's no proper way that we as members can scrutinise or provide any serious assessment as to whether this council is actually on track to meet Labour's own climate challenge. For all that I see before me is a catalogue of activities that lacks any time-bound targets and cost savings that we should be able to judge year on year. Throughout a rather self-congratulatory report, it is worth pointing out that the actions proposed today by this administration are the watered-down version of what the Conservatives warned would be impossible by setting itself to this target back in 2019. In fact, Madam Mayor, the report itself concedes that the council's operations account for just some 0.53% of total borough emissions. Yet there is nothing in this document, nothing at all, that offers any credible plan to influence the remaining 99.47% at the pace or scale that is apparently needed. There is nothing that I can see that would inspire businesses in this borough to follow the council's quest for carbon neutrality. And if we cannot utilise the enabling powers of this council to bring others along with us, then we have to ask ourselves, Madam Mayor, what is the point of doing this? And what is the point of spending taxpayers' money on this stream of work? Additionally, the Labour's group report points out that emissions from A roads are likely to increase due to the Lower Thames crossing. Well, of course they will, Madam Mayor, but again, beyond monitoring, there is nothing in this report that offers any credible solution to the real environmental threats that are facing this borough. And those threats, Madam Mayor, are the proposed concreting over of our rural areas, the green space grab that Labour have inflicted upon our urban communities, and the sheer hypocrisy of the Labour government to grant consent for the Lower Thames crossing to rip through the very heart of our precious and irreplaceable countryside at Higham and Shorn, whilst having the audacity to then preach to us about caring for the climate. Now, you can plant all the trees possible, you can express lofty and unachievable intentions, but for every bit of green belt that you call grey belt, for every square metre of farmland you permit development on, and for every million that is wasted on the Lower Thames crossing, the actions of this council will speak for itself. Once again, Madam Mayor, I will therefore be voting against this report tonight, as until the council commits through its actions and decision-making processes to protect our green belt and our villages from the plague of development that's coming over the hill, I'm afraid without this, I cannot support anything to do with carbon neutrality in this borough.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. I have Councillor Gary Harding next, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Across Britain and Europe, the future of transport policy is being actively reconsidered. What was once presented as a fixed roadmap is now facing both political, industrial, and public scrutiny. Most would know that the Reform Party have taken a firm stance which would abolish the zero emission vehicle mandate, removing the legal requirement for manufacturers to sell increasingly number of electric vehicles. Reform almost opposed the 2030 and the 2035 bans on new petrol and diesel cars, arguing that internal combustion engines should not be phased out by government decree. However, I must also mention that the Conservative Party has signalled a similar shift after its leader, Kemi Badenoch, I hope I said that right, the Conservative pledged that if elected, they would also abolish the 2030 petrol and diesel ban and abolish the said EV mandate, reflecting concern that the current policy are moving much faster than the infrastructure and the public will be prepared to follow. But also, since we think it's actually happening at European levels, car makers and more, the existing targets are too strict, creating uncertainty, reducing investment compared with China and the United States. In response, the European Commission is actually reviewing plans and considering a softer plan of a 90% emission reduction by 2035, allowing the combustion engine to continue to run if they run on e-fuel or low carbon alternative. A major challenge that remains the lack of challenging infrastructure here and in Europe. There is also a projected shortfall of around 2 million battery-powered electric vehicles between 2025 and 2027. Not only that, at home, the British government is addressing the loss of fuel duty reserve. The Chancellor Reeve and announced a new pay per mile charge for electric vehicles, 3p per mile, and for pure electric vehicles, and 1.5p per mile for plug-in hybrids. I think best in invest in hybrids nowadays. On top of the existing vehicle tax, mine is expected to be checked every year on your MOT, which means that the average EV driver will probably pay up to £255 per year on top of what they pay already. So therefore, all these developments add up, which showed a clear change of direction. The government are reassessing rigid mandate. The industry are actually calling for realism, and drivers are being reminded that every transition costs money. So really, for all of us, the task ahead is to balance environmental goals with economic practicality and public trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. And the next speaker I have is Councillor Shane Mockery-Fox, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. First, can I join you in paying tribute to Les Hills and his and sad news of his wife, and I'm sure the whole chamber wishes him well. And Les, if you're catching up with this later on, we all wish you all the best in your sad time. Madam Mayor, just a couple of points I wanted to focus on this report. First of all, in thanking officers for the work that is consistently done on this, because it does cross many different departments to bring this together. But there are some positives in there that I think are worth teasing out. The one important one, it isn't just about, I suppose, the saving of the trees and the environmental stuff that usually gets the headlines, but there is in there how much we have saved residents on a year in terms of their bills for this. £370 on average we've saved residents' bills per year. In the cost of living crisis and with energy bills, we in this authority have tried to save residents that amount of money, and it is in this report. Another part of this report that I'm sure we want to pay tribute to are the 830 volunteers we have as our street champions under Councillor Emma Morley's portfolio, who collected 4,341 sacks of litter, in addition to that which our wonderful team go and collect every single day from all the bins and do the litter picking themselves. This is people taking care of their community. And climate change isn't about the big ticket items that we see, but it is actually about people looking after their community. And that's something I think as a whole chamber we're going to want to support. Engaging with our young people as well. The Leader of the Opposition and I are emeritus members of the Youth Council, and the Youth Council is mentioned in here as people that have been engaged in this as community activists, not on necessarily a big ticket items, but on saying what they want to see for their borough and their future, which I think is really important. We've saved other money as well with the leisure centres. It's worth noting that actually we've had to, because of energy costs, we've invested in trying to keep the lights on in those leisure centres. And it's through the initiatives we put in place in these leisure centres that save those energy costs and therefore save the taxpayers money. So there are real practical parts to the climate change proposal and the climate change work that is done in this authority. And it is a partnership that goes together. And it's been mentioned that we've worked in partnership with other authorities, including Kent County Council. There are things that transcend party politics, and I think this is one of them, because there's some practical elements of this, Madam Mayor, I think we need to take account of. Finish by saying there's a couple of things that were touched on about the local plan. It's a little bit they'll have to wait. Three things to remind, I think, before we get to that. One, It's been a long commitment of this authority that brownfield first is a principle and will be and continue to be a principle, and I'll say it now before anyone gets excited for Reg 19. In Regulation 18, the regulation stage before this took place under the Conservative administration between 2015 and 2019. So some of these land dedications that may come out may have come through a different administration. And it is worth also noting that every single piece of land offered has been offered by the landowners when it comes out. So no council has been grabbed as grabbed land. Everything has been offered up by the relevant landowners. So I think we need to direct comments where they are due, but you'll have to wait for the Reg 19 to come out, because we're working very hard on it with officers to make sure it's right, to make sure it's legal and proper. And we'll do that working in partnership with everybody, and we'll come to members in due course, but it isn't the function of this today, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. The next speaker I have is Councillor Lenny Rolls, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought it was a good chance to reflect on what Councillor Harding had to say. Anyone out there watching or listening in the chamber may think that the Reform Party are completely against green policies. But as we can see, they're very good at recycling ex-Tory councillors who have fallen out of love with the Conservative Party. So they're very keen on a recycling policy. However, there's very little, as Councillor Harding's identified, to separate the policies of reform from those of the Conservatives when it comes to acknowledging the challenges of climate change and the challenges that we've got. And I was reflecting on the fact that I listened to Radio 4 this week, sad as I am. And I remember when I was growing up many years ago, hearing about the ozone layer and how it was increasing. And due to the fact that we needed to tackle CFCs, fluorocarbons or something, to make sure the ozone layer didn't reduce in size further. And that has actually been very effective. The ozone layer has been showing signs of recovery now. Now, we need to tackle the problem of climate change. We could bury our heads in the sand and do nothing about it. But we've decided as an authority to recognise the challenges of climate change and bring about policies that do our bit towards it. Now, to fill a kettle, you could use a drip and it can take forever to fill that kettle, but at least it gets filled and we're doing our part. And while we're doing that part and doing our part, we're also generating money for the council. So if you look at the report, £896 generated from the EV chargers that are in the borough helps to reduce the number of carbon emissions, also generating money for the council. Signet Leisure Centre changes to the air handling unit, reducing carbon emissions by 533 kilograms, saving lots of money, £36,000 on gas and electric costs for the council and for the council's local authorities. There's huge amounts. By changing the way that we recycle things, the excellent work of Councillor Emma Morley and Jamie and Tom and others, and our officers, we've managed to reduce costs in disposal by £41,000 in recycling costs by adopting this kind of approach. So I'd say, whilst doing the correct thing for our planet and for our children and for the future of everyone in this chamber and for those everywhere, we're also able to generate savings for the council, generate revenues for the council. Councillor Mockery Cox indicated the fact that there's a £370 saving annually on fuel bills where we've been able to introduce things in the council's housing stock. All of these things, they're not just idle, things to be spoken about in the chamber. They're delivering real change. And I think it's something, you might not agree with it, you may decide to vote against it tonight. It's something that I'm proud of that we're doing. So I'd actually encourage people to support it, because I think actually, if you vote against this, you're voting against the opportunity to save money for residents, to save money for the council, and to actually make things better for our planet. because that's what we're doing here in this report this evening. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowles. And the next speaker I have is Councillor Narinda Tandy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really surprised when everybody in the world is talking about how we can keep the climate clean. Some of our members here, they find force, but as a local council, we're doing small things, especially when there's some natural calamities happen, like floods or earthquake. Then you can see papers, radio, television, everybody saying how we can keep the climate clean. I just want to remind every my friends, the first Guru of Sikhs, Guru Nanak Dev, he said more than 500 years ago about the climate. Pavan Guru, Pani Pita, Mata Tart Mahat. The mean, the air is like our Guru, water is like our father, the land is like our mother. So if we respect our Guru, respect our father, respect our mother, we should respect the climate, the same thing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Narinda Tandy. And the next person I have is Councillor Emma Morley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight some of the good things that we, the officers, are doing in Thomasine. We've got solar panels at Brookvale Depot, which is saving the council money as well. We've introduced the food waste, increased the food waste recycling. We did a big campaign over the summer to get people to recycle their, to use the food waste service, and we've introduced glass recycling. So it stops people having to use their vehicles to take their glass to the bottle banks and stuff. So it's sort of saving people using their cars. The electricals recycling, we're up to about 52,000 items since it started. So I think the team are just doing such a great job. Working with schools as well, and the children are really interested in the climate change. Schools and even nurseries and stuff. So I don't know how people can turn around and say to these children, actually, this is low rubbish, it's not really happening. You know, they're so interested in it, so engaged in it. You know, we need to, they're our future, aren't they? So we need to do as much as we can to keep the momentum going. I mean, yeah, we've got our freighters as well. We've rerouted the freighters, so we've got smaller vehicles able to access smaller areas so they can get to flats and stuff. We're increasing the flats recycling, so it's all good news. I think it's great, and we should be supporting it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. I've got Councillor Aaron Elliott next, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to make a point today by asking you to picture a scenario that is hypothetical but not implausible. This Labour-controlled council announces progress on climate action. It commissions hundreds of solar panels and batteries, not unlike many of those others across the country which have been branded under the banner of Great British Energy. The intention sounds admirable, but let us follow that supply chain honestly. The orders are placed overseas, manufacturing is outsourced to China. The raw materials, cobalt, tantalum, nickel, originate in parts of Africa where labour protections are weak, regulation is limited, and environmental damage is extensive. In some regions, including the Democratic Republic of Congo, there's well-documented evidence of child labour and unsafe mining. Landscapes are scarred, ecosystems damaged, and communities are left with little long-term benefit. Those materials are shipped thousands of miles on heavy fuel oil vessels to coal-powered factories, with coal itself shipped on heavy crude vessels as imports from thousands of miles away. Workers assembling panels and batteries are paid wages far below what any of us would regard as a living wage, often under conditions that include excessive hours and limited rights. The energy used to manufacture these products is frequently among the worst carbon intensive in the world. The finished panels and batteries are then shipped back to the UK, again using heavy fuel oil, before being installed across our countryside, including productive agricultural land, permanently altering landscapes and reducing food security. We're told this represents climate leadership, yet each solar panel carries a significant embodied carbon cost, often measured in hundreds of kilograms of CO2, before a single unit of electricity is even produced. Batteries carry even higher footprints. In a grid largely powered by nuclear, the carbon payback period stretches towards the operational lifetime of the equipment itself, meaning we've gained the square root of nothing. The panels themselves also rely on backup, which is typically imported energy from the continent at huge expense, where Germany's reopened coal power stations and Norway drills oil and gas from the same fields that we could be accessing. So we must ask, what has truly been achieved? Have global emissions meaningfully fallen, or have they merely been displaced to poorer countries out of sight and out of mind? Have we reduced environmental harm or simply exported it? Are we improving workers' lives or relying on conditions we would never tolerate here? Meanwhile, the economic benefits flow primarily to overseas manufacturers and intermediaries, while local communities bear the visual and environmental costs. It is little wonder that many people, the US President Trump included, view this approach with skepticism. When climate policy appears disconnected from material reality, it risks losing public trust altogether. There is an alternative. If this council rescinded its meaningless climate emergency declaration and supported meaningful actions, a national strategy focused on domestic energy production, including responsibly regulated UK fossil fuels alongside nuclear, then the impacts will be locally accountable, governed by British labour and environmental law. The harms would be visible, regulated and debated openly, rather than outsourced to some of the poorest regions of the world. This is not an argument against environmental responsibility, it's an argument for honesty. Real climate leadership does not mean outsourcing damage while claiming virtue. It means confronting trade-offs, valuing accountability, ensuring that our solutions do not depend.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you have wandered off the report and the issue that's being debated. I apologise, but you have wandered.
I'm shining a light on the real impact of 299 solar panels and batteries as declared in the report.
I do understand what you're saying, but you've wandered off the actual report.
Okay, thank you.
I think the next speaker I have is Councillor Daniel King, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I put this together when I was reading about the climate change, and I think it's for the local improvement and also for the benefit of our local community. This council, as I see in the climate report, believes that climate change represents one of the most significant environment, economic, and public health challenge facing United Kingdom and local communities, including Gravesham Borough. Road transport is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emission in the UK, with petrol and diesel vehicles producing carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and particulate matters. Air quality, as we know, remains a public health concern, particularly in urban and residential areas of Gravesham, affecting vulnerable groups such as children, older residents, and those with respiratory conditions. The UK government has committed to achieving the net zero carbon emission by 2050 and to phasing out the sale of new petrol and diesel cars. Electric vehicles producing zero tailpipe emission are a proven that we have seen on our roads, most especially the buses that people are saying they are heavy buses now. And just like the one that my leader spoke about, seeing it being charged and it was in awe, seeing how it works. I happen to be an engineer and I understand a little bit about this. Increasingly, this is affordable technology that can significantly reduce carbon emission when combined with the UK's growing renewable energy capacity. I know that this council believes that local authorities have a vital role to play in supporting national climate commitments through local leadership and practical action. The transition to electric vehicle, to me, presents an opportunity not only to reduce emissions, but also to improve public health, reduce noise pollution, and support economic resilience. Encouraging this electric vehicle that we speak about, uptake aligns with the long-term interests of residents businesses, and future generation in our borough called Gravesham. This council, I believe, recognizes the benefit of electric vehicle, including the benefit to environment. It will bring about significant reduction in carbon emission, contributing to climate change mitigation. It will improve local air quality through the elimination of exhaust emission, and also it will reduce noise pollution, creating quieter and more pleasant neighborhood for all of us. Let me now bring it to the health and the social benefits. Local emission exposes us to harmful pollutants, leading to improved respiratory and cardiovascular health. I know safer, cleaner streets that support active travel and community well-being will be achieved if this is pushed forward. A positive example for residents, schools, businesses in adopting sustainable practices. Let's look at the economic benefits. Madam Mayor, it will lower running and maintenance costs for residents and businesses when all these things are being put in place, like the electric vehicle and all other things that are operated electrically. Opportunities to local job creation in charging infrastructures, maintenance, and green technologies. It will also bring about increased attractiveness of Gravesham Borough as a forward-thinking, environmentally responsible place to live and invest. Local and the strategic benefit to us as well as a random. It will reduce reliance on fossil fuel and increase energy security. It will support resident transitioning to EV through vehicle infrastructure and council leadership. It will also be in alignment with regional and national climate strategies. That is my motion for supporting the climate change. Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. I now call on Councillor Deborah Cox. I've changed your husband. I do apologise. I made the doctor at the last meeting, so I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. Sorry, Councillor Deborah Croxton, and Debs will be the last speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to come back on the comments regarding this particular authority and government regarding green space. The town centre regeneration plans are being revised to enhance green infrastructure and public spaces. We are implementing a cross-departmental programme implementing that we plant 3 trees for every tree removed due to housing development. And I'm pulling this from the climate change report. We are integrating greener solutions in developing projects, and to date, 5,322 whips and 23 standard trees have been planted. And then finally, the North Kent Woods and Downs NNR. The efforts are now focused on Kamer Park and West Park to protect veteran and ancient trees. So we are protecting our green spaces, and it is important to this particular authority. So, and that is why one of the reasons I will be supporting this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Deborah Coxton. I really am having trouble, aren't I? I call on the leader now, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I always enjoy these council meetings. It is around the point of Christmas, and it's meant to be a meeting we all get on. It's a bit of humour, a bit of light banter. We enjoy it, and we all go off and have a pint afterwards. It's normally quite nice. And today, hopefully, we can do the same thing. But to that point, this is an amazing debate we just had. And I just noted down here some things we touched on. Solar panels, how they're made, dealing with national strategy, one about employment rights. Well, this is from a party that is proposing to get rid of and not support employment rights in this country, the Reform Party. That's the national stated policy to remove employers' rights and employees' rights and remove wages, reduce wages. So they're taking their challenge of the way forward from China, the very people complained about tonight, which is quite strange. We also have the issue around the Green Belt somehow got into this debate. Where that turned up on climate change, I don't know, but it's a worthwhile ditty to the side. Religious texts coming in to the debate, again, always interesting. And national party politics from Reform. Really weird. When this is all this report is a statement of how we're getting on. It's not the strategy. The strategy was done back in June. We voted on it in this chamber. We debated it in this chamber. That was the time to talk about the ins and outs of how we move forward. Not tonight. Tonight was just a report saying what we've done and highlighting what we've done. We can talk about that, but we're getting involved in detail. And funny enough, I'll come back to it's Christmas, like Christmas panto, really. Isn't it? Now, we know that Shane loves being Father Christmas. He's done the role for us before, and this is Christmas, and no doubt he will do it for us again in the future. But Christmas, we have a period of time. There are other remarkable characters who step forward as well. And tonight we've seen them. Jordan Mead, Grinch. There's got to be Grinch, isn't he? Backed up by his partner in crime, Martha May, in the concept of Gary. Because you've got to have those characters at the same time as you have Father Christmas around Christmas time. That's how it works. So I think this is the way this debate seems to be happening now for this type of point in time at Christmas. But let's go back to the detail. We actually brought in solar panels on over 1,100 roofs of our tenants back in 2014, a long, long time ago. And it's proven very effective for our tenants. We actually made money on it as a council, and our tenants have had the benefit of it all those years, discounted and cheaper electricity. That's a fact. Now, I think we need to bear in mind those issues. We've brought in changes on how people are driving. We've got more and more people, including myself, moving over to hybrid cars or electric cars, away from the diesel guzzlers and the big engine cars with petrol. We're moving more and more into electric. That's the reality. That's called leadership. And that's what this council should be doing. We can't change the world. We can't change all the policies in the United Kingdom. We can't change them in Europe. What we can do is lead in this small area of Gravesham a difference, a new way forward, provide leadership. That's what we're meant to be doing here tonight. And to that end, I would thank Councillors Dakota Gibbon and interested from KTC, Diane Moulton. They attended the climate change policy meetings over a number of meetings over a number of years. Dakota, you went as a Conservative and you joined. Diane, before she flipped this time into Reform, she came as a Conservative back then. Conservative Party members backing the policy of this council, engaging in the process of understanding what was going to happen, challenging it at times, questioning it at times, which is the right way of dealing with it. In the appropriate place, they dealt with it. Diane was particularly on board with it. And to that end, I thank her. But I think this is where we seem to now getting into this national party politics in a local area to ignore local people. I'm not interested in national reform and what they're going to do in cutting salaries and conditions for staff and everything else that they're proposing. I'm not interested in the Conservative getting their history of what they did and didn't do because they failed in so much. I'm interested in what we can do as leaders in our local community to make a difference, to improve our environment, to improve the situation on climate change, to improve how we reduce climate CO2 emissions. That is a slow process. We're doing our little bit, and it'd be so much stronger if we all joined together in it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I think we're going to need to go to a vote, so I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so we have a motion as laid out in front of us, as per the recommendations laid out on page 55. I've not heard anybody calling for a recorded vote. So in the absence of that, it will be a simple show of hands, Madam Mayor. So yeah, the two recommendations laid out on page 55, can I ask for a show of hands, all those who are for those recommendations, that motion, please. And if I can ask a colleague of mine to help out. 3, 4, 10, 19. Can I ask All those who are against, please. And can I ask if there are any abstentions, please? Madam Mayor, that motion is carried 19-12. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. We now move on to item 9, Council Tax Reduction Scheme 2026 to 2027. And I hand over to the Chief Executive and then to our leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this introduction short. Again, what we have in front of members this evening is a potential new council tax reduction scheme for working age claimants. Having been out for consultation recently during the months of October and November, Section 2 of the report sets out the proposed new scheme parameters that are suggested, and the rest of the report deals with the consultation responses that have been received. And with that said, Madam Mayor, I'd like to hand over to the leader, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report sets out five recommendations, on page 79, which are proposed as a motion.
Please second the motion, Madam Mayor. Reserve my right.
Just speaking briefly to the report itself, obviously it sets out quite a clear strategy of how we're going to move forward. It provides for discounted reduction of council tax for the lowest paid, lowest income families in our community. It clearly indicates there's about 4,000 families that will benefit from this. I think that's to be welcomed. I think it does help us as a collection authority as well, focus our effort on collecting the money in from those who are choosing not to pay the council tax, as opposed to unable to pay the council tax, who's a lack of income and lack of funds. And I think it is another way of helping people in our community who need support, who need help. And if there's going to be a cost, and there will be to this, it's got to be said, it's only fair that those who can afford to pay the bills and the taxes, and perhaps from the bigger houses, should contribute to this as part of the national programme of how we support those in our community who need support. And that support should be there from all of us. So hopefully we'll all join together and agree this. It is Christmas as well. So let's get behind this one at least and support those in our community who need the support. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Do I have anybody who wants to speak? No, so that's agreed, is it? Going back to the leader do you want to wind up, Leader?
Just winding up, I think obviously the spirit of Christmas is upon us. So thank you, everyone. And let's, can we note it as of unanimous?
Agreed. Excellent. Oh, wonderful. If it looks, I think it's correct, we move to item 10, the updates to the Constitution.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So some fairly simple changes to the Constitution. Members will be aware earlier this year, our Director for Housing departed the organisation. That has resulted in some changes to the structure, management structure of the organisation, and these changes set out the necessary amendments which are required to provide for the delegated authorities, together with some additional changes to the contract procedure rules and the code of conduct for members. The changes have been shared with the group leaders already. And with that said, I will hand over to the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 115 are 4 recommendations which I put to the council as a motion, please.
And again, happy to second, Madam Mayor. Reserve my right if required.
Do I have any speakers?
I would just about to say something.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Gosh.
I know we're in a rush to get through to the Mayor's Parlour, as it is Christmas, and no doubt there's a load of goodies available for us all shortly. So I won't speak long. The report change is quite comprehensive. It's changed names and details of officers, doesn't change delegations as such, and it's saying it doesn't give officers any more power than they had before, or in fact less power than they had before. Neither does it change the role of members. So apart from changing a few names in key positions, the document, I'm hoping, will be supported by us all tonight quite quickly. And no doubt the Mayor will invite us next door shortly.
Thank you, Leader. Perish the thought that I nearly usurped him. Is that agreed? Excellent, thank you. So we move on now to item 11, to consider questions from members of the council, of which notice has been given under council procedure rule 14 to the chief executive, please.
Madam Mayor, no questions have been received.
Excellent. The mince pies are obviously calling. The next item is number 12, to receive the mayor's announcements, and that's me. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the community, Gravesham community, for inviting the mayoral office, both the deputy mayor here, Councillor Alison Williams, and myself, so many wonderful, wonderful events. It just astonishes me how much wonderful events there are, but the people, they're all volunteers who bring these events together. It is beautiful, it really is. And I appreciate it so much, as does Alison. Great appreciation to you. We had songs around the tree, the Christmas tree, in the Kent room here at the Civic Centre earlier this week. And I have to say, it was just a joy. We had the Christmas tree, we had baubles into which people could put money, whatever they could afford, to hang on the tree, or if they didn't want to hang a bauble, they could hang a bauble and put money in the bucket. Don't think you've got off the hook, councillors. And we had that tree in the parlour, and it was a joy. We had the primary school choir from Rocherville. We had the rock choir, who were just phenomenal, and the special guest, and yes, he was a special guest and he did exist, was Byron Witchley, who is actually Buttons in the Panto this year. And he was just amazing. And he got everybody there singing the 12 Days of Christmas. And he broke them all into factions, singing different verses. And I can't tell you, there were two members who were singing one verse about the maids of milking, and they were just so lovely. They're well into their 80s, and they decided that they would milk the cows, and it was delicious. So that was the songs at Christmas. We do have a lot of events coming up that are happy events. However, at this time, I do want to wish you all a happy Christmas, but also for us all to remember that there are a number of people out there who find things difficult during the year. And at this particular time of year, with the tinsel sparkling, it is even more difficult for them. And quite often, it can just be a kind word, a kind thought that can make a difference. So for us all to bear that in mind. And as we go forward into 2026, and let us hope it's going to be a really peaceful year, let us hope that that will come. I do have some events. 6th of February, mega quiz, very cheap, tables of 6, only £30, tables of 8, £40. You work that out, it's only £5 a head. Ebbsfleet have actually donated the use of their lounge, which is terrific, and their bar, of course. So do book your tables as soon as possible, and then we'll be heading to the lovely Cobham Hall for the Sunday lunch, and we have a massive amount of entertainment during courses, which will give you complete indigestion, I'm sure. No, it won't. It's a lovely event. So look forward to a peaceful new year. And to all of you and anybody who's still watching us on YouTube, have a lovely, wonderful Christmas, because it is, I think, the most wonderful time of the year. And whenever I say that, people say, now are you going to burst into song? And if you want to hear me sing, you'll leave the room immediately I started. Happy Christmas and thank you and good night. To the parlour, please. There's so much food.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worshipful, the Mayor of Gravesham.